What a day. What a day, what a day. All right. Are we up? Come on. What do we got? Hey, we're up. How cool is that? Good evening, everybody. It is Remembrance Day 2021. You know, solemn day. I have, I don't know about any of you, but I have some family members who were involved in various combat situations over the years, so my thoughts go out to them and anyone else who may be veterans. It's a emotional day, at least for me. Which, there's a lot of reflection, a lot of learning, a lot of historical education. I'm a guy who likes to learn about history and learn about things that have happened and all the lessons that we should be learning. And I hope that others do so today as well, because that's kind of what the point is. We're an incredibly lucky group of people to be alive when we do, especially here in Canada when we do. Pretty remarkable. It's kind of amazing when you really think about it. But yes, so figure I'd start the show with a little blurb about that. I did make a donation today as well, in case you're interested. I made a donation to a charity out in British Columbia called the Veterans Transition Network, which is a charity dedicated to helping veterans readapt to civilian life, and sort of they provide a lot of therapy dog services and a lot of counseling services for quite a few veterans every year. And more recently, they've been supporting Afghan translators who have come over from Afghanistan and settled, or I should say, settled in Canada, in British Columbia. So if you like, I can provide the link. I will provide the link if you're listening to the podcast in the description. But it's a very well-regarded charity out in British Columbia, and something that I think goes to help a lot of people. But let's jump into the show. Why not? Busy week again this week, trying to track as many guys as possible. Circled back on a few guys. Starting to get down into the nitty gritty. I'm starting to get to the point where very few players are getting added to the list. But I'm sure the list will grow over the course of the year. But there's quite a few still to go for me to look at for the first time. But we're well past 100 players, which is pretty remarkable already. Adil, hello. How's it going? It's going okay. We've again, as is tradition in the household before these live streams, the partner and I, my wonderful producer, we watched the newest episode of Survivor, and we're still upset. So if anyone else is a Survivor fan in here, I'd love to talk trash about Survivor. I mean, it's not terrible, but yeah, doing well. Other than that, doing quite well. It was homemade pizza night tonight, so pretty happy about that. Thomas Killiam. Oh, here we go. Right off the bat. Who's the Ottawa pick this year? Tyler Clevin, Tyler Boucher, Ridley Greig. Also, thoughts on Marcus Silvegaard. For Marcus Silvegaard, I can't really give you much there. I don't think I've heard that name in quite a few years. Oh, my neck cracked. I have not heard that name in quite a few years, I don't think, unless I'm thinking of a different guy with the last name Silvegaard. Let me Google him. Yeah, Marcus. Yeah, okay, so this is the guy that I was thinking of. Elite Prospects is being slow. Yeah, this is the guy I was thinking of. He's having quite a nice season back with Malmo this year, so that's nice. He is a guy who I think way back in the day kind of was on some radars. But, maybe he's worth a look, but I have not seen him at all this year. But who the Ottawa pick could be? I mean, it really depends on where Ottawa's picking. The thing about that, it's really hard to tell, because it's hard to know when Ottawa is going to be drafting. But let's do this exercise. Let's is it updated? Is it? Let's see. Okay. So right now, Ottawa's 3-8-1. I have not looked at the I have not looked at the standings in a very long time. So let's assume Ottawa has a top 5 pick. It's going to be Connor Geekie. But if you want someone who's completely off the beaten path that Ottawa could shock the world with, I would say Nathan Gautier. Ottawa picking Nathan Gautier at 5th overall is so Ottawa Senators. But he does play in Quebec, and I don't know how often they really draft out of Quebec. But Nathan Gautier kind of is up that alley of I hit everything that moves, and that's my job. Maybe David Jiricek could be an option. Maybe that is kind of what Ottawa's looking for too. I could see that. Boy, I did not think they were doing that bad, but okay. Okay. Do you have anything on Sebastian Schellin? I believe that's how you pronounce it. Gellian? Let me Google. I mean, I don't. Me hesitating kind of gives you a hint that I don't. I have never heard that name before, but I will look. I have him pulled up now, so thank you for the heads up. Maybe ask me next week or 2 weeks from now, and I'll have more. Adil celebrated 20 today. Oh, congratulations! Welcome to the 3rd decade of your life, right? Yeah, 3rd decade of your life. I remember being 20. I spent about half of it drunk. But stay in school, don't do drugs, whatever, be smart. Don't be like me. But congratulations. Welcome to the 20 club. It's a good time. I guess it's a good time to be alive, being 20 these days. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how you look at it, but congratulations regardless. Welcome to your 20s. It's a ride. The Canes made an interesting choice of going with Koivunen over Aatu Ratu last year, and it raised eyebrows. Any thoughts on that now with a bit more hindsight? Seems like a good call. I think we need to wait a little bit. I mean, Aatu Ratu has scored 2 points per game with Jukurit in 2 games, and he's gotten, I think, 50% more minutes than he was getting with Karpat. They're both really good players. I had them relatively close on my list last year. I think I had Ratu at 12 or 13 and Koivunen in the early 20s. Like, that's not too far, and I still believe in Ratu, but I knew that there was risk going into that. The thing with Koivunen is he was always undervalued. Like, it was pretty clear that he should have gone in the first round to me all year long. I thought that he looked fantastic all year, or at least after the first 2 months of the season. I thought, okay, this guy's legitimately extremely, really smart, really well refined, and just a great puck possession player. We'll see how it happens for him. He'll probably need another year in Finland. I imagine translating to smaller, I feel like translating to smaller ice for him. We'll see how that goes. But it's plenty of time for him to sort of develop the skating and sort of agility and speed that I think he might need a little more of. But Aatu Ratu, I think with him, the risk is just, is he going to be mentally confident and mentally good enough to be confident and play enough where he can put pucks in the net? The data that I tracked on Ratu last year was very positive in a lot of ways relative to what people were saying about him. I know some teams had him as a D&D. I think in hindsight already, you can say, I think what you can say in hindsight already is that Ville Koivunen was underrated for a guy who went, I think, 40th overall. And with Aatu Ratu, I think it's still too early. Like, I think that it's just too early for people to say, oh, see, we were right about him, or oh, see, we were wrong about him. I think it's too early for that. I mean, my thing with him still holds true. I think him and Karpat are just not a great mix right now. I think he's putting way too much on his shoulders. And as soon as he got out of Karpat, he's up to, I think, something like 80% of his production over the last 2 seasons in two games. And he's been just given more ice time. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes for him. But in retrospect, I think what you can say is that Ville Koivunen probably should have been drafted a little earlier. Have you watched much of Isaiah George? I've seen him quite a bit and think he's the D-man I've been most impressed with London this year. I have not seen Isaiah George, but I'll also write him down and have a look. But the London Knights, I don't know. I've only seen a little bit of London this year. Not a ton of guys. Like, someone asked me about Colton Smith before, and I'm not super high on Colton Smith, but I will check out Isaiah George. Former Toronto Marlboro, right on. Hey Will, did you release your write-up on Podkolzin? Yes, we did. McKean's, it's on McKean's website. The Podkolzin report is out. Didn't hear too much feedback on it, which I guess is a good thing, I suppose. One person had some negative things to say about me not watching enough of him. I don't know, but that's an opinion. But yeah, it's on McKean's, and it did come out. Sean Boyd, just in time for the best live show on YouTube. Dang right, Mr. Boyd. What are your thoughts on Philip Machar after this week of tracking? You know, I really like him. You know, his second game was not quite as good as his first. A few things kind of regressed back to where they should be, probably. But I really like Philip Machar. He reminds me a little bit of Ville Koivunen now that we've been talking about him a lot. You know, not the most flashy, quick, agile guy, but just a really smart 200-foot role player who can move pucks effectively. You can rely on him to be involved in play, going both directions pretty reasonably well. I feel like once his skating, you know, he has a few more years to develop his skating and work and get on that sort of NHL level. I think he could unlock a lot more potential out of his game. He makes pretty complicated passing angles look pretty easy. He identifies his options relatively quickly and executes really well. You know, there's a lot of things about his game that I think are really rock solid and not much that I think are really poor. I think the big limitation is his skating. I think he's just kind of not generating speed particularly quickly. He's not the most agile guy, but he knows how to adapt to pressure. He can get around the ice just fine, I guess, and spotting his options and executing on them are really, really positive traits in his game. You know, he's completing quite a few of his passes for a pro player. He's passing the puck a lot. You know, I think there's an interesting player there, especially if you can get him in the early second round. Like, if he slips out of the first round, yeah, like if you're a rebuilding team and you're in the early second round, Machar could be a nice pickup. But I feel like he might go late first round. But I guess time will tell. Why do people put Savoy low on rankings? I don't see how his offensive skill set isn't better than Cooley, for example. You know, I think a lot of it with Matt Savoy, like, I've watched him a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a couple of games. I've tracked one game, but I should do a second soon. I think with Matthew Savoy, the defensive game kind of leaves people a little bit wanting. I think what people are looking for out of Matthew Savoy is like the perfect player. Like, that's the expectation. And he's not really that, but he is a heck of an offensive player. You know, in the one game I tracked, he didn't shoot the puck once, but I've seen him shoot the puck last year with Dubuque and this year, and he's pretty good at it. You know, he's a great playmaker. He has tremendous speed, you know, tremendous transition ability. But, I mean, it's still, I don't know. I feel like it's still a very pessimistic read to have him towards the back half of the top 10. Again, I will probably do a second game of his either this week or next. And I really like him. He's a number 2 on my list, and I don't think anyone else has really challenged that spot. But he's very, very talented. But I think a lot of it comes down to his defensive game has been kind of like, he's a really good skater, but you only see it really when he has the puck, from what I've seen. It's unfortunate, but we'll see what happens. It's still extremely early, and I still really like the guy. I'm just trying to answer your question about why he might be a little bit lower. Personally, I have more than enough faith that at the end of the day, he's one of the best players available in this year's draft, let alone one of the top even 5. I think that's not in doubt. But we'll see after more games. Hello, Zane. Patton, hello. Have you watched Garrett Brown? Yes, I think I tracked him for last week's show. I did a game. You know, Garrett Brown is a guy who has really good hands, and the rest of it was kind of not really there. like a really deceptive with his hands, really quick, but the skating is not great, I would say. He kind of, I don't know, it was kind of weird. Just wasn't covering ice super well. Really awkward forward skating stride, just not really very efficient, but you can work on that. But his hands are really nice, and he had a decent game from what I remember. But it was a while ago, so I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, like, his game was okay. I mean, his passing percentage was pretty bad. Yeah, like, okay, maybe it wasn't so good. But it was, like, you there's hands there. There's something to like. There's stuff to like with him. Maybe as a later round pick. He's on my watch list. I liked enough to put him on that list, but there's a lot of work, I think, there to do with Garrett Brown, at least from what I've seen. Chris Barbarian, hello. Have you had a chance to see Owen Power this season, and if so, has he improved on any of his draft year shortcomings? I think I watched like parts of one Michigan game, and that's it. Look, I mean, I said this a lot last year. Luke Hughes is almost a full year younger than Owen Power, and in the time that I've seen Michigan playing, I'm more impressed with Luke Hughes than Owen Power. Maybe that's just me. Maybe. Owen Power scored a ton of points in the first couple of games of the year. They were playing really low-level teams and just filling the net, which is the expectation. Owen Power I asked someone who has a vested interest in watching a lot of Michigan and says that a lot of the same issues are still there in his game. But, I mean, I don't know. My big takeaway from that game that I watched was, yeah, like Luke Hughes being a full year younger than Owen Power and both of them being on the same team, I would still take Luke Hughes before Owen Power. Because it's just, there's so much more just energetic offense to Luke Hughes, and Owen Power, I don't know, maybe in like 3 years I'll be singing a different tune when Owen Power fills out and gets more comfortable on his feet, but he's been 6'5" for a long time, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. Is Noah Östlund the most complete player in this year's draft apart from Shane Wright? I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's a complete player. Noah Östlund is not he has a heck of a brain and a lot of skill and a lot of potential. I think there's a ton of upside with Noah Östlund, but he's very soft on his feet. He's very much a one-touch offense guy, like carrying the puck for him. He doesn't really have a separation gear. He doesn't have a lot of quickness to create space. He has nice hands to do so, but it doesn't come out a ton. He's a very smart player, and I think that's a nice blueprint to work with. I'm not surprised he's not ranked in the first round on a few lists. I'm very optimistic about him. I don't know, like the most complete player this year, I would say, that isn't Shane Wright. Maybe like complete player. Frank Nazar, maybe, like a really well-rounded player. Yeah, him. At the end of the day, maybe David Juracek, like in a few years. But yeah, I'm not sure Östlund is quite on that level, unfortunately. He's at least not yet. Oh, loaded question time from Stofferson. Why do you think Tim Schutzle is struggling? Because Tim Schutzle has always had issues in his game with regards to playing with a more dynamic push and pull pace, a little bit more control of the game. I don't know. I haven't really seen a ton of Ottawa Senators hockey this year. I just with Tim Schutzle, it's always like if he's not playing at the highest of high paces and he's just going, and if he doesn't have anyone to play with him who can sort of finish the plays he's setting up, it can be tough. He doesn't really have a lower gear, and he can sort of skate himself into trouble a lot. Like, I don't know if it's that he's trying to do too much, or if his line mates haven't really been playing super well with him, or what. But again, like, these were the sort of issues that some people were highlighting about him and got yelled at for. And his defensive numbers have never been particularly good. They're better this year than they were last year from what I remember. So maybe there's a DJ Smith influence of, well, we know you're an offensive player, but we might want you playing more 200-foot hockey, and that kind of harms the offense. But, I mean, look, the big thing with him is he's not scoring goals, but he's got a hell of a shot. And if you've got a hell of a shot, you can probably score goals, and it might just be that he's just having a really terrible start to the season. He's not the first person to struggle in their second season in the NHL, so I'm not sitting here saying Tim Schutzle is a bad NHL player. Just trying to answer the question of why he's struggling right now. And I've always been a huge fan of Tim Schutzle, but when you raise concerns about a player and get yelled about it, and then those concerns lead to issues, it's I don't know. It's one of those things. But yeah, his defensive game was not great last year. It seems to be a bit better this year, but I don't know. I'm not super concerned though. I still have tons and tons of faith that he'll figure it out, especially surrounded with sort of the young guys that Ottawa's bringing up and trying to put in the lineup. But yeah, I mean, we'll see after the COVID thing, because this is turning into a bit of an issue for them. But I'm not super concerned long term. And I know you didn't ask if I was concerned, but we'll see what happens. Obligatory, oh geez, here we go. Obligatory ridiculous Toronto Maple Leaf prospect what? Oh, wow, there's a lot of questions already. Thank you very much. Toronto Maple Leaf prospect comparison time. Alex Steves to Pat LaFontaine. Oh my god. I know you're joking. Yeah, JK, but for real. What was your opinion on him in college translating well to men's hockey? Ladies and gentlemen, if you go back on my YouTube channel to if you go back to after the 2019 draft, I think I did a video about guys who were undrafted who should probably have been drafted. Raphael Harvey-Pinard is in that video, and Alex Steves is in that video. I was not surprised to see Alex Steves slowly become one of the better college players in the country. I've always had a lot of faith in Alex Steves. I thought him going to Toronto made a ton of sense. He's skilled, he's creative. The thing with his game was always sort of skating and pace, and I think that's what held people back. But the intelligence of his game and the offensive creativity, I think, really benefited him. And I think his skating has come quite a ways since he was draft eligible, at least from what I saw of him in college after he was signed. I went and watched some of him, and he looked a lot better than what I remember, which you hope, obviously, being in college for 3 or 4 years or whatever it was. No, it was only 2, I think, right? But anyway, he is translating well. I mean, it's still early in his career. Like, let's see what happens. But yeah, I've always liked Alex Steves, and I thought that he was one of the better NCAA players for the last couple of years that not many people were paying attention to. And I know you didn't ask, but give me Ashton Calder this year and give me Roman Hassan. Those are the 2 guys in college where I've been excited about them for at least the last 2 seasons. And I think they're both seniors. I know Calder transferred from Lake Superior to North Dakota, so maybe the Ottawa Senators will pick him up. But yeah. Who's the Kirby Doc, Brandon Coe, Cole Huckins type of player, big boy with soft hands? That's a very good question. I would say maybe Connor Geekie, I think, could be that type of player. Trying to think of other ones. Like big boys who have nice hands. Not like, I don't know, maybe their actual hands are nice, but they're hockey hands. Yuri Slavkovsky maybe could be that at the end of the day. He's still a bit clumsy, like he's kind of Bambi-like, but that's okay. But he could be one of those at the end of the day. Yanni Newman could be another one. Who else? Because usually the big players that I have ranked really high, they have skill, they have hands. Yeah, I mean, I would say Connor Geekie's up there. Yanni Newman and yeah, Yuri Slavkovsky, I would say. What happened to Jake Ottinger? I don't know. Did he get up on the wrong side of the bed or something? I thought a lot of those guys in Dallas were hurt. And also, I mean, goalies are just weird. Like that's always a fallback, right? I can just say that. Goalies are weird. I'm just loading his elite prospects page here. I mean, he's playing in the minors. Dallas has like 6 goalies, so they're not really in a rush to jump him straight into the NHL, even though he played there last year. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Dallas should really concern themselves a ton. Does he belong in the NHL? I mean, he played well enough last year, but when you go out and acquire Braden Holtby, you can't bench Holtby, right? Like, they clearly didn't think that, like, I think that Dallas looked at it and went, if we make the playoffs, is Jake Ottinger really going to be, is Jake Ottinger really going to be our guy, right? And if the answer is no, and if you think that Braden Holtby can help you more, then you go with Braden Holtby. It sucks for Jake Ottinger, but it's not over. His NHL career is not over. But, I mean, the math behind it from Dallas kind of makes sense, I suppose, but they got to make the playoffs first, and so far not yet. Do we see Seamus Casey in the top 5 range soon enough? Personally, for me, he's building a gap as the number 1 defenseman in the draft. Yeah, I saw there was some hype about him today on Twitter. I mean, he's in my top 5 now. After watching him again last week and watching guys like, who did I watch this week that's really highly ranked? Oh, of course, nobody. Last week I did do a couple. I did do Ty Nelson this week. I like him a lot more than I've liked Ty Nelson. I've liked him more than I've liked David Juracek so far. I've liked him more than Simon Nemec so far. But the Simon Nemec game I did was very, very good for Nemec. So, but I still think that Seamus Casey is just a monster. And I have a ton of faith in Seamus Casey as a defenseman for a while. So he's in my top 5. I don't think I'd put him ahead of Cooley, maybe not even Brad Lambert. But he's done very well for himself, I would say. Certainly a guy that I didn't think I'd like as much going into the season, but now that I've seen him a couple of times and watched the NTDP a ton, he catches your eye very, very often for good reason. Hockey hell yeah. Oh, here we go again. Is Tyler Boucher a bust? Sens pick from 2021. Oh yeah, we all know who Tyler Boucher is, my friend. Is Tyler Boucher a bust? No, he's not. He's 18 years old. He's 19 years old. He's going to be in college for a little bit, I hope. I like Tyler Boucher. I think he'll be an NHL player, but the whole problem is they picked him 10th overall. I mean, Cole Sillinger, look at what he's doing in the NHL right now. Like, anyone and their dog who watches any sort of hockey could probably tell you that Cole Sillinger is going to bring you more value probably even sooner than Tyler Boucher. I don't know. The thought of Tyler Boucher ahead of a guy like Cole Sillinger never crossed my mind. The thought of Cole Sillinger playing in the NHL this year never crossed my mind. I thought, if you like him, you give him a tryout, sure. But I mean, I've done the next McKean's pieces about Cole Sillinger, and when I was watching him in the NHL, yeah, he looks like a guy who belongs in the NHL. Like, he's already, I think as a center too, which is pretty remarkable. Like, I don't think he's this like otherworldly game-changing talent right now, but he can hold the line in the NHL, play perfectly fine, drive good results, and not look terrible. And so I get the feeling that with Tyler Boucher, like, yeah, you got your guy. Like, Ottawa got their guy. Clearly, they just got their guy. But he has not had the best start to his college career, and guys around him are performing better on paper so far. But it's still very, very early, and you can't just label a guy a bust before they're, even 20 years old, let alone like 22 or 23. So, patience. How has Ken Johnson adjusted his game to fix the issues he's had with his galaxy brain issue? I think he's simplified things a bit from the brief time I've seen Michigan play. But I think a lot of his points are still coming on the power play, but I could be wrong on that. But I don't know. I get the feeling that if he still wants to galaxy brain things, he has the skill to do it. It's just, wasn't working out as often as I think he was hoping, but if he can make it work out more often over time, then who cares? How good is Ty Voigt looking in the OHL this season? Very good. I think he's looked pretty good. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs, you got to give them credit. I mean, they swung on Ty Voigt. We'll see how he translates to the North to to pro once he gets there. But he's an electrifying, fun, skilled winger, just like Toronto seems to like him. He's been good. He's been good in the OHL this year. Certainly a lot of fun to watch. Okay, so someone said 2 questions, but they took time to write them, and I'll get to them in a moment. I've seen a lot of lists with Lambert out of the top 10. Has his start really been that bad? No. In general, how much stock do you put into bad starts by top prospects? How do they translate to your list? It's a fascinating question because you have to define what you mean by bad start. And this is what I'm like, sometimes when I'm on the show or answering questions or talking to people in private, like it's, or even especially people who like want to start watching and like analyzing hockey, you got to kind of think about like what being good means and what being bad at hockey means. Like on the professional, you know, whatever level professional hockey the person's playing at, what does a good player look like and what does a not so good player look like and why, right? Is a good player just a player who scores points? You could make that argument, sure. Like if someone sits with me and says, well, my guy that I like scored 90 points last year and your guy with all your fancy stats only scored 65 points, so why is your guy better? And you can't really counter that. It's like, you know what? Yeah, sure. When your player is on the ice, the puck goes in. The player's involved in putting the puck in the net more often than mine. Sure, great. But there's more to the game than that. And hockey is just a weird, finicky game where once in a while you get rewarded for doing a lot of good stuff. And it's all about probabilities. And whenever I've tracked Brad Lambert this year, like, he's one of those guys that the talent level is insane. It's undeniably extremely high, I think. But the application of it is really hit or miss. So you, like, if you think about it, like, I forget what type of chart it is, but I saw it's like the argument about like fixing climate change, right? If you recognize that climate change is a problem and you do nothing, that's a bigger problem. If you recognize that climate change is real and you do something, you deal with the issue. If you don't think climate change is a problem and you do nothing, and it isn't a problem, then you'll be okay. Whatever, you got lucky. You gambled, but you're okay. And if you don't think climate change is real and you still just agree to do something, or if climate change is not real and you still do what, you know, more environmental leaning people do, you're going to end up with a healthier population. You're going to end up with less pollution. You're going to end up with less crap in the air for people to inhale, and that will have a trickle-down effect into the other systems of society. So with a guy like I was about to call him Bradham Lambert. With a guy like Brad Lambert, you could say, well, maybe he's just not very good. And it's like, well, then you're ignoring all the procedural stuff that he does that is very positive. Like, I did another game of his, and his numbers are still very, very good. You know, like a guy in the Liga involved in a third of his team's offensive transitions and maintaining control of 85% of them. I'm interested in that hockey player. I want puck transporters, especially centers. It's just that when the puck is in the offensive zone, he's trying to do stuff, right? Like his offensive threat is almost 20, which for a men's league player is very high. He's sending pucks to the front of the net. They're just not being completed. He's creating shot attempts. He's assisting on shot attempts. He's taking them himself from dangerous areas. He's not a perimeter shooter. His PDO is still pretty low. Like, I get the feeling that with him, it's just like what I just outlined. If you don't think he's very good and you pass on him and pick someone else, maybe you're right, all right? Like, maybe. But there's a lot of evidence from what I've seen that may indicate that there's a lot of headroom to develop with him, and I'm not going to deny that he can be frustrating at times, but he's a player where you bet on the talent. And if you're wrong, at the very least, you end up with a guy who might have trouble putting the puck in the net himself, but has enough speed and skill to transport the puck up the ice. You know, and maybe he scores 50 or 60 points a season in the NHL, but, you know, if you put him with really good scoring wingers, then maybe you get something out of him. And if he slips to 10, 12, 15 in the draft, then you make out like gangbusters, even if he doesn't hit that sort of top 3 or top 5 potential that I think he has. So, I don't know. I get the feel, like when you look deeper than just him not scoring a ton of points, he looks pretty favorable, and that's including relative to a teammate in Joachim Kamel, like pretty much across the board, especially in transition. So I still have faith, and I'm diamond handsing Brad Lambert until the end of the year, even though I find him kind of frustrating at times with the puck on his stick, but he's still doing what he can. I like him a lot. He's number 3 on my list, I think, and he's going to probably stay there for a while, or at least in my top 5. Thoughts on Sean Farrell's great start in the NCAA? In their last game, the commentators said pretty a crazy stat. In their first 5 games, they've scored on every power play. Yeah, I mean, look, having 10 points or whatever it was, and I'll preface this by saying that I love watching Sean Farrell play hockey. For the last 3 years, no, last year he was with Chicago, the year before he was with the NDDP. So the last 2 seasons, I've loved watching him play. But you got to also recognize, like, 7 of his points. Why isn't it showing his 5th game? Whatever. He has 7 points against Bentley College and Dartmouth. Those are not very high-level NCAA programs. And a team like Harvard, which historically has been very good in the Ivy League conference, they should be pummeling those teams into the ground. It's why I'm always skeptical of the Ivy League conference and guys that score a ton of points coming out of it, and why I'm skeptical of certain conferences in the NCAA. Like, if Sean Farrell went in to play against Bentley College and had 1 point in a 7-3 win, that would be kind of concerning for me. It's very good. Like, he's a very good player. I love Sean Farrell, and I think there's a great player there. But, like, it's important to look at who they're playing. It's important to keep that in mind. It's important to recognize that in the NCAA, the talent difference between the top programs and the bottom level ones is quite vast. And Sean Farrell and a lot of guys on Harvard benefited from that in the early games of the year. But we'll see. I still have lots of faith. Maybe he's not an NHLer next year, but another year or 2 at Harvard, sure, go nuts. Any thoughts on some high-scoring D+1 undrafted players? Theo Richette. I think Theo Richette's a D+2 at this point, but I could be wrong. Tucker Robinson and Mikey Milne. Yeah, I mean, I try to keep tabs on these guys as much as I can. Theo Richette is a D+2, Brian. You guy. You freaking guy. I mean, Theo Richette, I've never been super taken with. I don't know. I don't... It feels like a cop-out, but I'm not sure exactly why. He's dynamic and skilled and all that, but it's for me, it's always like, yeah, but isn't enough? Like, is it enough skill, or is it enough pace in his game? And when he's faced with pressure, like, I never really liked how he deals with it, and you know, quarterbacking a rush up the ice. Like, he's kind of a give me the puck and I'm going to carry it and make a play in the offensive zone type player, which is fine, but I don't know. I just, with him, I always had a weird feeling. And again, like, I get the feeling that, you know, maybe he's a guy that you invite, you know, I'd invite him to camp for sure. But at this point, I don't know if I'd use a draft on him. A draft pick on him. And Tucker Robinson, I don't know. I don't think there's much there. I think he plays for North Bay, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know. I was watching him last week or something. And I don't know. I just never felt like there was much there. He kind of reminds me of the feeling I got watching. His last name was Struthers, Matthew Struthers, who, like, as a D+1 scored a ton of points in the OHL. And I think he was in that undrafted player video that I made in 2019. But then I watched him play more as an older player, and I went, yeah, I can see why this guy wasn't drafted. Like, I can see why he wasn't picked and whatever. So yeah, Tucker Robinson is more up that alley for me. Mikey Milne is on my watch list. I liked him last year. I thought he would get a late round pick and someone would swing on him and see what happens, because there's agility and skill, and he can shoot, but he can also make a play. Like, there's a nice offensive player there that I liked last year. And yeah, he's on my watch list. I thought about taking him on my list last year, but I couldn't ignore Lucas Gustafsson or Yuri Slavkovsky. But I like Mikey Milne, and yeah, I feel like after a year, I feel like he'll get drafted this year. I don't know. I like him the most out of the 3 that you mentioned. Michael Berry. Got any stock tips, Michael Berry? That's a bad joke. That's a dumb joke. Forget I ever said that. Do you watch film of older prospects in past draft years? Who you under and overrated to see what you missed or what you can learn? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't do it a ton. What I have done definitely is I'll look at players who have really outperformed their draft slot, or guys who, when I watch them, I go, how in the name of God was this player available in the 3rd or 4th round? And then I'll try to say, okay, like, what are the trends that are clear that lead to this? The one example that jumps to mind immediately is David Ferentz. I've loved David Ferentz for a long time, and the way that he plays and just the dynamic, ton of fun style of defense that he brings and his ability to just fill the net. And I went back and watched some NTDP tape of him. And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. He's agile and skilled, but, you know, Quinn Hughes is on the same team, and Quinn Hughes, you know, is going top 5, and David Ferentz might just be second fiddle. Whereas nowadays, I just kind of throw that all out and go, you know what? I probably would have liked David Ferentz a lot more than I did at the time, looking back at the tape, and I'm not going to do that again. I'd rather put my chips in the middle for a guy that I really, really like for the traits that I look for, a lot of them David Ferentz had, and be wrong, than be too cautious about those guys. Like, my list very clearly looks very different from a lot of other lists in a lot of ways. And there are some hot takes, I guess you could say, to some people, but it's just from it is from that experience of like going back, looking at guys who are outperforming or underperforming their draft slots and wondering why. And now more recently, what's been interesting is when you watch so many of these guys, like, I watched, I think I tracked like 500 individual performances last year, let alone how many games I just sat back and watched performances of a player just to make notes. And, you know, I had my list, and over the last 2 years, like, I have my lists, and they're pretty much how I would normally order them. But there is that sort of influence from other people and from other outlets where I'm like, well, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. And those are the players where I like to look back and keep tabs on. You know, guys like Braden Schneider and guys like, I'm trying to think of other ones. I can't remember any others off the top of my head. So we'll go with Braden Schneider. You know, after he had a pretty good year last year, I was going back and watching a lot of Brandon and going, you know what? Yeah, like, he's doing some things differently in his game. He's putting the game on his shoulders, and he can move. Like, he can move pretty well in a straight line, and that's dandy. And I undervalued that. But it is interesting also to look at those lists and see the players that slipped, and maybe looking back at the video that I pulled and go, okay, like, maybe I saw things a little bit wrong there, or maybe I was looking too much at this area or too little in this other area, or maybe I just that day where I put the player in my first round, I just wasn't watching the right group of players. Because what I usually do is I watch a group of players that are kind of close in my ranking list and go, okay, am I crazy? And just sort of deal with it from there. And over time, it sort of evens itself out. But that doesn't mean that you're perfect. Like, sometimes I'm still kind of scratching my head a week after the draft being like, why did I have this guy so high? Like, when they fall in the draft a little bit, I'll look at the tape and go, okay, yeah, maybe I should have had them lower. In that situation, I definitely do that. But I also, like, a lot of what I do is going back and watching and learning and trying to feed back. It's, again, I say this all the time. The work that I do, it's kind of like the stock market. You don't know what's going to happen in the stock market. You don't know. You can run all the models and all the estimations and everything you want, but you don't know. And you never will. And you can control for as many factors as you want. But you just have to find out how to control for those factors enough that you find a combination that works. And you only really do that when you make mistakes. And when you go back and check yourself and go, okay, I misevaluated this, or I overvalued this. And sometimes that thing can be really simple. Sometimes that thing can be pretty complicated. But it's important to always sort of check yourself and learn and go over it. But that's a very good question. And in a short one-word answer, yes, I do go back. Especially guys like David Ferentz, for example. Just the guys who go a little bit later than I think they probably should, and examining exactly why those players are so exciting. Will, when will you bring back hockey card pack openings? Very good question. That was usually an off-season thing. Maybe I'll do it for like Christmas this year. That might be fun. I do have one more box from 2 years ago that I have not opened. I believe it's like a pack from 2016 or something. So I'll do that at some point. But yeah, that was an off-season thing. And for this season, since the off-season was pretty short, I took some time off and just stepped away. But so I didn't really have the time to do the hockey pack openings, but maybe for Christmas we'll whip those out again. Zach, hello. Have you talked about Gleb yet? Please do. I could talk about Gleb Trikazov all day. So like he's 15th on my list, a little lower than he was before. But I don't know. My list it's so messy right now. It changes constantly because it's so early in the year. I looked last year, I had a list out in mid-November, and I remember distinctly I had my list out in November, and by December 1st, I went, I'm an idiot. That was bad. Like, that was a bad decision. It was too soon. It was too quick. Even though I think it was only the first round, I still did not feel comfortable after I put that out. So I'm waiting a little longer. Gonna do a second game on a lot of these guys that I still haven't seen. But Gleb Trikazov I've seen a second game of, and I'm pretty sure there's a heck of a hockey player there. One of the younger players in this draft, definitely the youngest for where I have him. Like in the top 15, he's the youngest. He's the second youngest player in my entire first round. I really, really like Gleb Trikazov. His shot is bananas. His skill level is very good. It's practical, but not flashy. He is, he needs to bring more away from the puck. I find that if he doesn't have the puck, he can kind of be invisible and kind of disappear. But holy crap, when he gets the puck, he can make a play, he can shoot, he can make a play from inside. He can cut into the middle of the ice, he can shoot from anywhere on the ice and be a threat. I don't know. I've really, really liked Gleb Trikazov. And, if it takes until the under 18s next year for him to sort of show everybody what he's capable of, then so be it. But I have really been a huge fan of him. And yeah, he's one of these guys that I think I'll be pushing hard all year to bet on the upside. Again, he's almost a 2023 eligible, and what he's doing is insane. Like if there were 2023 eligibles playing in the VHL this season, that's pretty notable. That's pretty rare, and he's almost that. Even though he doesn't have the points, he went down to the MHL. It's a joke. Like he's a joke down there. Like he can score with his hands tied behind his back. I think I wouldn't want to see that, but maybe. Actually, I need a glass of water. Brought to you by the municipal government of the city of Burlington. It's the best drink you can get at the bar. A glass of nice water. With the Detroit Red Wings really hitting up Swedish players, do you think it is at the expense of missing out possibly on Finnish or Czech players, as I rarely see them taken by Detroit? They took Emile Viro, and he seems to be working out just fine. I think, again, I don't really think about it from a nationalistic point of view, and I don't mean like nationalistic, like, the bad kind of nationalism. I mean just literally like thinking about it, breaking it down by country. I look at Swedish players, like Detroit has always had a lot of faith in Swedish players, and they've had one of the best Swedish scouts in the world working for them for years. So I think that Steve Yzerman, I can't remember his name, Tommy something. I think Steve Yzerman has a really good Swedish scout in his ear going, draft this guy. And I trust the Detroit Red Wings with their ability to draft Swedes. I see what you're saying. I don't think there's much to it personally. Like the Czech players that have come along in recent years, they haven't really been quite relevant, especially where Detroit is drafted. Like I don't think they're really on the board as much. And Finland, they draft a couple of them. Like they drafted Was it Rami Mata they drafted? No. I can't remember off the top of my head. They drafted someone from that team in Assat. They've drafted Finns before, and they've done so in pretty early in the second round. Yeah, Håkan Andersson, that's his name. That's the one. Håkan Andersson. I'm thinking of Tommy something. He worked for the Leafs, I think. I might have mixed them up. So yeah, like if you look at Detroit, where are they here? So they're right up to the top. That's very nice. Good for them. So Detroit, they've got a few Swedes here. Otto Kivimäki. There's a Dane and Malte Setkov. Kasper Kotkaniemi is a Finn. I don't think they've missed out, really. I think the Swedes they've drafted seem to be working out just fine for the most part. But I get your point. I see where you're coming from. What's next? What do you think of Ponomarev? He's fast but lacks elite skills. I mean, I've never been as high on Alex Paulo. I've never been as high on Vasily Ponomarev as a lot of other people. Again, I just feel like in my viewings, he was very inconsistent from game to game. He kind of was like, he's quick and works hard, but I get, like you said, the skill's kind of inconsistent. When he plays for the Russian international team, I feel like he's a different player, like much better. But with clubs, I just feel like I haven't seen much with him. I mean, he's 20 years old, playing in, or 19. He's turning 20, playing in the VHL, and seems to be doing okay. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. With Ponomarev, I thought that Carolina could have drafted someone else in the same slot at 53. But again, he just never really checked a lot of the boxes that I'm looking for from the games that I saw of him with Shawinigan. I'm trying to like Topi Niemela was on the board, and who else? Like Topi Niemela probably would have been my guy there, or Daniil Gushin. And I mean, it's easy to look at Gushin in the OHL scoring points, and I'm sure if Vasily Ponomarev was in the QMJHL, he'd be scoring a lot of points. But he just was a guy that I always felt had pretty limited projectability based on his game. And maybe, again, I look back and I'm wrong. But, I mean, I guess it's an acceptable pick in the range in which he went. Like end of the second round, sure, whatever, fine. Do you, dog? Thoughts on Cutter Gautier? Cutter Gautier is a really interesting example. Again, I've only seen 2 games of his, and I've tracked 1. I get the feeling with Cutter Gautier, he's one of these guys who kind of has that like Landon Slaggert vibe. And I like Landon Slaggert a lot, but I think that what's going on with Cutter Gautier, from my perspective, was tons of talent, high motor, high pace, high skill guy, but doesn't know what to do with it. Like, his passes are bewildering at times. His ability to get involved defensively is really inconsistent. There's a lot of things with his game where I'm just kind of left wanting in terms of the next step. Like there's the on-ice talent, there's skating, there's skill, there's attacking the middle of the ice, there's all those basics that you need in your fundamentals. But I just didn't see much in the way of 0% defensive transition involvement after one game. Usually you don't see a 0, especially for a guy who I believe has been playing center. 40% passing and not passing the puck a ton. He's just, he's a guy who I think attacks with speed and pace and skill and not much else, which is fine. You can get away with that. And he's in my early second round. And I think that as the year goes on, I think there could be a lot more to go with. But he's a guy where I feel like he's one of those case studies of really high talent, not a super high thought process around the game or utilizing line mates and being aware. Like, not the awareness, I think, is the issue right now. But he's a good player. Like, I like Cutter Gautier's talent for sure. Michael Berry's second question. We finally got to it. Do you track any data to see if a prospect busts? For example, do you track data of prospects who rely on their body to shield the puck, which might work in juniors but not in the NHL? I mean, NHL players use their body to shield the puck all the time. But I do keep in mind the players who are underperforming, and I look at the data, and especially in the offseason, I'll look at the data and look at the video that I've pulled of them from what I saw, and try to see what the common threads are. If anything, I find that the problem is the opposite of what you suggested, where guys who don't use their bodies whatsoever and just sort of attack with pace and speed offensively, and then if they're faced with pressure, it's like that's it. They can't handle it. That's the thing. That's the thread where I look at guys where I might get excited about them, and then they kind of underperform, especially once they get to professional ranks. There's a lot of guys who I think it takes a lot of time to learn how to play defensively, and not necessarily being big, mean, and nasty, but just chipping in defensively. You know, like the extra couple of strides at the right time where you can make a lot of kerfuffle for your opponent. That's where you can maybe gain some value that a lot of younger players, I think, once they hit the pro ranks, can take time to adjust to. And maybe they don't at all adjust to it. But I like after the fact, usually I don't track any data for guys who are not doing so well. The McKean's feature about like what happened to this player, which I did last year, the one player that was kind of true for was Oliver Wahlstrom, where there were some flags early where I'm going, yeah, maybe this was a bit of a problem, and but again, it's hard to tell in data things that are, I guess I don't know. It's a really good question. That's why it's making me think. But usually I do go back and see the guys who are sort of underperforming their draft slot and look at the data in the video that I have and wonder why. And usually what I look for now are young players who can use their body to, even if it's just for half a second, protect the puck and move on and get it to a teammate. Because I feel like I see that a lot in the NHL. Who's the best skating big boy in the draft this year? The big boy. Good skating big boy. Good skating big boy. I mean, if we're talking like big, like big, a big boy who can skate. I mean, Yanni Newman is big. I mean, but his skating isn't great. If Philip B Stead keeps his feet moving, maybe him. I've seen Yuri Slavkovsky do some pretty crazy stuff against junior competition at a pretty high speed. Maybe Nathan Gautier as well. Like I don't hate Nathan Gautier. I just think he's kind of overvalued. But I like what he could be, like a bottom six, pacey kind of big physical player. You know, maybe a defensive center that can maybe slip a couple of nice little passes through defenders here and there, because that's what he was doing in the queue. And he's not really slow, so maybe him. Maybe there's some options, I guess. Maybe Owen Pickering as well. Like he's big, but he's kind of got an interesting set of feet under him and some nice skill, but that's not what you asked. If say Sportsnet rankings went exactly the way they suggest, Savoy being 8th, Lambert being 11th, etc., how fast do you pick up the phone if you were a GM and they fell to you? If Matthew Savoy is available at 8, yeah, it depends on where my pick is, but if I'm picking 8th overall and Matthew Savoy's available, then I'm a happy boy. And if it's 11th overall and Brad Lambert's available, then I'm a happy boy. Again, like when you're in that range, though, it's very difficult to make deals. They usually don't happen. But yeah, I mean, if those guys are available in that range, which could be possible at this point, I'm happy. I guess you asked how fast I'd pick up the phone. I would pick up the phone so fast that I'd fling it over my shoulder. Like the sweaty palms that I would have from waiting for Brad Lambert to slip to my pick or Matthew Savoy, I'd pick up my phone and fling it across the room. That's how fast. Who's the guy this year that will go absolutely ludicrously higher than he should have, a la Tyler Boucher? Well, Nathan Gautier going top 5 to Ottawa would be amazing. Even though I just said that I like him, that would be amazing. Because, I mean, again, Tyler Boucher was pretty remarkably, like, out of the ordinary. Yegor Chinakhov was one that was kind of also nutty. Like, I don't know. I am so confident on my read on Gleb Trikazov, and his statistical profile over the last few years is so positive that I get the feeling that there is some NHL teams out there that are seeing it the way I see it. And I have not seen Gleb Trikazov anywhere in any first rounds ever. I brought him up to someone and who knows a Russian scout and said the Russian guys never even brought him up to me once. Which, I don't know. That sounds a little crazy to me. But I get the feeling that if Gleb Trikazov goes like 21st overall, a lot of people will be like, who is this guy? Especially if he doesn't have like a huge under 18. But I would be like, yeah, this guy I think is pretty good. So maybe I'll be the guy who's defending. I mean, I kind of defended the Tyler Boucher pick a little bit, but not as much as I would defend a Gleb Trikazov pick if it was like 10th overall or something, which would be pretty remarkable. And you know what? Columbus drafted Chinakhov from the same program. Toronto signed Mikheyev and Semyonov from the same program. Like, NHL fingers are in the Omsk system, and he is the hotshot 17-year-old that is playing pro hockey that is not named Ivan Miroshnichenko, that if I'm Omsk's coach, I go, don't forget about this guy. And maybe that's going to be it. But that's just me talking. Otherwise, Nathan Gauthier is probably going to go top 10 or something, and I'll be like, wow, that's wild. And everyone else will too. Ilya Kovalchko thoughts. He's not going to be a first for me, but there's great smarts there. I like Ilya Kovalchko. I think he's in my first round. Yeah, he's at 26, 25. I've liked him a lot. I need to see more of him before I lock him in that range. Like, I could easily see him slipping out of the first round. But I found a really skilled player, Ilya Kovalchko. My first game and my first impressions of him weren't super positive. But he seemed to be doing a lot of the things that he needed to do really well. I want to see more of him though before I'm sure, but I like him. I mean, there was an interesting pace to his game. He's a bit undersized. I would like to see him in maybe the VHL or KHL a little bit more, but that's probably asking for a lot. Drove really good possession numbers. Not the best transition player, at least offensively, for a guy in his position, but I imagine that might just be a small sample. You know, didn't shoot the puck a ton, but I kind of like Kovalchko. I've liked him. Has Watt and Kidney's production in the queue impressed you? I don't know. I get asked this a lot already. I mean, Riley Kidney, I never thought Riley Kidney would not score points in the QMJHL, but like, we're not in the business of finding players who are gonna score in junior hockey. I just always came away more impressed watching Jacob Melanson and Cole Huckins than Riley Kidney last year, especially as like NHL prospects. Joshua Waugh, I've never seen it. I just have not seen it with him. I just haven't. I've watched him briefly this year. I still don't see it. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I wish I keep thinking about it and I'm going, okay, but he's scoring points. So how is there must be something going on that is there. And every time I watched him last year, it was just, I don't see an NHL player. I just don't. He's got a good shot. He's got a nice curl and drag shot. That was pretty much the only thing I made note of. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there, like he's got magic beans or something, and he's gonna be an NHL superstar. But I have not seen it personally. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I never played the game, so who knows? Any skilled defenseman that could rise on your board? Mats Lindgren, I think, out in the WHL could rise. He's just outside my first round. Skilled defenseman. Pavel Mintyukov has a ton of skill, and he's a ton of fun, and I could see him getting up higher on my list than he is now. Vladimir Grudinin has some skill that I like, but I don't know if he's going to rise much higher than 50 or 49 where he is on my list now. Kali Odelius, I really like him. I feel like he should be getting more attention. He's 26th on my list. There's a lot of skilled defensemen who are looking pretty good this year. Lane Hudson has improved a lot over the course of the year already from what I've seen. The first game I tracked to him, I thought he was terrible. And I just haven't seen much out of him that I've liked. And then recently, he seems to have picked things up. I love Seamus Casey. He's the guy that I'm kind of the most psyched about on defense. And so, I mean, I don't see him rising any further, but he's consistently risen. I mean, every time, he's one of the guys where I'm just like excited to watch him play. I just love watching him play. So yeah, he's probably the top one on that list. Kali Odelius is one that's a ton of fun as well. Okay. What did I think of Pelovin? Well, the second game I tracked of Alexander Pelovin, the second game I tracked of him was not as good. It was in the VHL, so it was against pro competition. He just felt kind of panicky, a little bit out of his element. His game in the MHL, though, was like automatic. He just did not do anything wrong. You know, he's got a lot of skill. Really fun defenseman to watch at times, but really unrefined. Like, I feel like in the NHL draft, he'll be available like in the 6th round. But I feel like if you draft him and let him stay in Russia for 2, 3, 4 seasons or whatever, your patience could be rewarded. Lafreniere's kind of struggled in year 2. Is this an adjustment curve? What are your thoughts? I thought he's looked better this year. I feel that he's looked better in terms of looking lighter on his feet, looking more comfortable at the NHL pace of flow from both ends, from one end to the other. But I don't know, he's still not playing a ton of minutes with really great line mates from what I have seen. I could be wrong. I don't know, again, like, this is, like, we just finished talking about Riley Kidney and Joshua Waugh. When I see guys that, I had this concern about Alexis Lafreniere all season long when he was draft eligible. Like, the talent is there. You can see the skill and the shot and the playmaking and everything. But it's almost like he had just, his pace of his game was never high enough where I'm going, this guy's going to light the league on fire right away. And I don't know, like, it's befuddling. Like, I don't know. Because he's not a bad hockey player, but there is a difference between playing hockey in junior, especially in the QMJHL, and jumping straight into the NHL and being a world ender. Like, it's pretty rare. But I still think also another factor is that the NHL is really, really hard. And if you're not a specific type of player or a very limited type of player and very good at those types of player, at being that type of player, you're probably going to have trouble. And it seems like Lafreniere's skating and his pace of his game just don't seem to be there yet. And when I look at a guy like Cole Sillinger, not only is he, I think he's been playing with better line mates, but I also feel like when you look at Cole Sillinger playing, he's just simple. He gets the puck and moves it. He's not trying to do everything himself. In the offensive zone, he's just floating into open space, just finding little pockets where he can play around, calling for the puck, getting it, and making a play. Just a really simple, effective game, and he has the skill and sort of just adaptive thinking under pressure to make it work. It's not the craziest thing I've ever seen, but it works. With Alexis Lafreniere, I don't know, like, it's just not quite on that level yet, which is kind of weird. But again, the line mates I don't think are really helping him out a ton. I don't know. It's a $1 million question. I don't watch enough Rangers hockey to really know the answer for sure. But it's I said in the video that I did on him, I feel like there's an adjustment period, but I didn't think the adjustment period would take more than a full season. Okay, we're gonna switch over to Twitch for a minute. because there's a couple of Twitch chats. Hello from a first-time chat from a viewer. First-time chat from viewer. Wow, cool. That sounded sarcastic. It's not. Hope you're doing well too, my friend. Whatever that is. Who has the best name of this draft class, like Red Savage or Damon Hunt? Ooh. I mean, best is such a suggestive term. It could be so many various things. And yes, I'm stalling. Yes, I know I am. Cutter Gautier? I mean, there's a kid named Cutter. That's pretty remarkable. That's amazing. I like that there's a guy named Gleb. Gleb is just a great word. Just 4 letters. Just, beautiful. A wonderful name. But we'll go with Cutter Gautier because his name is Cutter. Like, what is that? It's crazy. Hey, Will, any guys who were excited about going into the season who aren't getting any opportunities early on? Yeah. So I'm wondering who has really dropped on my list. Not a ton of names have really dropped. I mean, Noah Ostlund, I was really excited for early in the year, and he just kind of has been okay from every time I've seen him. I still think there's an enormous amount of headroom, but I still think he's just kind of okay. Philip B Stead is another guy who I think has been an issue. I just haven't seen a ton out of him that really feels super high end, but last year I remember watching him and thinking there was something there. And I've seen him turn on the jets and use skill and play with a lot of fun and creativity, but I don't know. I don't see it a ton anymore, at least. Or maybe it was all smoke and mirrors. Was really excited and curious about Denton Matichuk, but I don't know. He's scoring points, but I haven't really seen a ton out of Denton that I'm really writing home about. But I think Noah Ostlund is probably the best example, even though no disrespect to Noah Ostlund. I have a ton of faith in his game, but he's been a bit disappointing to me this year based on what I was looking for. Danila Yurov. So what's his potential and what do you like in his game and what do you not like? Top 5 or top 6 out of 10? So I've moved him down to 6. I could see him a bit lower. I just don't think I don't know, like people were putting up a lot of a fuss when he wasn't playing a ton of minutes in the KHL, and I was watching him in the KHL going, you know what, if I'm a KHL coach, I'm not playing him. Like, he looks okay. He's okay. He can tread water in the KHL. And Sam McGilligan today in a private server I'm in, he brought up an interesting question of who do you draft if you could pick them all at the same time between Rodion Amirov, Danila Yurov, and I'm trying to think of the third person. It doesn't matter because the third person wasn't as good. And it made me think, it's like, well, based on what I saw of Rodion Amirov in the KHL, I saw a more dynamic puck possession, agile player than Danila Yurov in the KHL. I like Yurov's skill. Like, his one-on-one skill is nice. His edges, he can drive a lot of speed with his crossovers, but he hasn't really been doing a whole lot in the KHL. Like, I'll pull up his data because I've done 2 games. He hasn't played a ton of minutes, so granted, that's a factor. What's his name? Danila Yurov. There he is. Like, it's mediocre. Like, the shot attempts aren't going either direction when he's on the ice. He's not touching the puck a ton or passing it. When he's moving offense, he has very little involvement defensively. His offensive game, he's involved often, but losing possession quite a bit. It's just, I just get the feeling that when I look at him in the KHL, like Rodion Amirov's numbers were significantly better than this, like significantly. So I look at Yurov and go, yeah, I think by the end of the year he could be a little bit lower than a lot of people have him, at least for me. I mean, I like him. He's shifty and he's got some skill. And when he goes back to junior, yeah, he rips it apart. So that gives me hope that in a couple of years he'll be faster and stronger and, you know, more comfortable at that level and be able to figure it out. I think he's a top 10 guy though. At worst, top 12. I don't see me putting him lower than Ty Nelson or even Isaac Howard or Gleb Trikazov. I mean, I love Gleb Trikazov, but Danila Yurov is quite a puck possession player, and I don't know. It's an interesting thought experiment in my head now, thinking about Gleb Trikazov and where he might be at the end of the year. But anyway, I don't know. I don't think Yurov's going to go much higher than 6 on my list for the rest of the year. Maybe that'll change. But when I've watched him in the KHL, I just find that he's like an okay player in the KHL, which I can see why coaches might not want that for him. Who are the smartest, best instinct players that just play the game and make you happy? Brian, you know the way to my heart. Yuri Kulik is one of those guys. Philip Mashar is another one. Marco Kasper, I think, is another one of those. Who else? Seamus Casey, I think, is another one. That's a good start. I'm trying to think of other ones lower down the list. David Goyet is quickly becoming one of those players for me. Not the flashiest guy right now. He's got some skill and he can skate, but he just kind of goes out and executes, and I love that. I love guys that just go out and keep it simple and execute and just play the game. And he could be one of those. Tracking Elias Pettersson. What year is this? Yes, no. Not that Elias Pettersson. This is a different Elias Pettersson. There's another one playing for Örebro, the same team as Tim Almgren and Simon Forsmark. He stood out to me a couple of times watching Forsmark and Almgren, so I checked him out. He's at the sort of tail end of my list now, but I don't know. Not a super high priority for me, but there's skill. He's a skilled defender, but there is not a ton else going on, at least not from what I saw. Did you watch Tyler Dysart? I don't think I did. I remember you recommended a couple of other names, and I checked those out. But I don't think I saw NCDC guys. I have a really hard time with NCDC players, to be honest with you. Yeah, especially if they're like half a point per game. But I'll take a look. San Jose Junior Sharks. Very nice. Oh, he's from a place called Sunnyvale. Shout out to all my Trailer Park Boys fans. You should check out Matthew Ing in the WHL. All right, I'll do what you say. Fine, I'll listen. You've beaten me down long enough. I'll do it. Fine. I'm just kidding. Have you ever thought of doing a series where you redraft previous drafts? No. I don't know. I don't know what value that really adds. Personally, that's just me. Maybe people would read them. You clearly would, so maybe I should. But it hasn't really crossed my mind to do so. Aw, Matthew Ing is 5'5". That's adorable. All right, I'll check him out. Are you just plugging San Jose Junior Sharks players to me? Are you from California and just plugging California players? Because if so, cool. I'm happy. I love looking at anyone suggested. Just curious. It's fun. It's a funny little thing that is. But yeah, I haven't really thought about doing redrafts. I don't really read them that often. I feel like it would be more interesting looking back at my interpretation of these players and redrafting them and saying, I would put this one higher. I would put this one higher. I might put this one lower or whatever. Like I might mess around with that. And then explaining why. But that's as far as I think I would go. Another question. Which prospect are you tired of answering questions about? It's November 11th. I feel like I shouldn't be tired of hearing questions about certain players. It's the 6th or 7th live stream of the year. It is pretty insane how many questions I'm getting already about Brad Lambert versus Joakim Kamel. I don't know. I'm pretty confident in my read on the situation. I get the feeling that Brad Lambert has been extremely snake bitten, and I get the feeling that will change because he's just doing so many things the right way and doing them well that I'm not super concerned. And I say that every week, but I still get questions, which is fine. I love whatever you guys have to ask. So don't feel like I am resentful towards my audience, because I am not. But yeah, I mean, it is funny though. Like right away, like it's already like within a month and a half of the season starting, it's already happening. Did you see Kravtsov's crazy goal and 3-point game? Told you he's the best. All right, Jesse, I know. Okay, fine. Vitaly Kravtsov is the greatest hockey player on the planet. What's your opinion of whether he's better than Lafreniere at least? I still don't see that. I still don't. If you put Alexei Lafreniere on big ice in Russia in the KHL, I feel like he tears the KHL to pieces. Capo Kakko, I don't know what's going on with him. Again, I just don't know what the Rangers are doing. I feel like the Rangers as an organization are just not doing the right things for a lot of their younger players. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know. But it's a weird, strange, and disheartening pattern with young players with the Rangers and having trouble getting going and getting their feet going. The only one who really seems to have crossed that Rubicon is like Adam Fox. You could make the argument that Ryan Lindgren is one of those, but like Ryan Lindgren kind of plays the style of play where even if he were bad at hockey, the Rangers are going to play him a ton of minutes because he's physical and big and mobile. And like, I don't mind Ryan Lindgren at all either, but it seems like he's pretty much a plug and play NHL player. And there's not much really development or assistance required to sort of hit a ceiling there. Whereas with Lafreniere, like he clearly needs help, and Kakko clearly still needs help. And Kravtsov clearly was not very happy with him. Like the GM basically just straight up did not like him and said as much. Like if you're a 21-year-old kid trying to find a way into the NHL, like that's not going to motivate you, especially in 2021. Like that's not how you talk to teenagers really, or young adults. I wouldn't like to be skewered publicly, personally, and I'm 31. So I don't know. I mean, I don't expect Kravtsov to not score points in the KHL, but that's not the problem, right? Like, the skill and shooting ability was never the problem with Kravtsov. When I watched him in the NHL, I saw a player with sloppy hands on puck receptions, not being able to generate speed, finding open ice and finding space. He would just get closed out immediately and not be able to escape that pressure or get the puck to someone who could. And that really, really, really struggles. That can lead to struggles. Like you're not going to produce very often if you're that type of player. But in big open ice in the KHL where things are, I believe that goal also was a 3-on-3 overtime goal. I could be wrong, but like it's just easier. So I don't know, but I get the feeling that the Rangers just need help. I don't know what's going on there, but it's a problem. Evan Bouchard thoughts. Just for you, Ray? He sucks. No, honestly, I've only seen like one Oilers game, and I wasn't really paying attention that much. And Evan Bouchard, I don't know. I can't really give you good Evan Bouchard thoughts, to be perfectly honest. But I've always been a fan of Evan Bouchard's upside. I thought he was brought into the NHL pretty quick. But, I mean, yeah, he seems to be doing okay so far this season. So, see what happens. I love Philip Massar. Cool. So do I. That's great. Do you think he could go mid-teens? I don't know about that. I've got him at 21, and I think that's probably around where he'll probably go, at 22. He's ranked on average around 21, so like maybe in that range, maybe because of the skating and he's not the biggest guy, maybe towards the end of the second or end of the first round, maybe early second, more likely than in the teens, I would think. Like my top, I'd say 20 is pretty solid, I think. And I don't think Mashar really cracks that group, but we'll see. Hey, Will. Hello, Matthew. Have you seen much of Jacob Perreault's brother this year? I didn't even know he had a brother. I didn't even know he had a brother, so I'm going to look him up. I'm going to look him up and see if he's real. I imagine he is. His brother, Gabriel and Jeremy Perreault. Which one is it? Gabriel Perreault's on the NTDP. Oh, okay, so his brother's 22. I have not seen Gabe Perreault play, or at least when the NTDP is playing, I have not seen him. Oh, he's a 220. He's a 2023 eligible. Who cares about the 2023 draft? You know what I'm saying? But no, I've not really been paying much attention to the U17 team this year so far. Oh, there's a super chat. I didn't even notice. Thank you very much. Oh yes, I recognize you. What's your opinion on Lightning prospect goalies Amir Miftakov and Hugo Alnefelt? I'm not the biggest fan of Alnefelt. I am not sure about Miftakov. I mean, I do like that Miftakov was drafted, and I think that the athleticism, I've always been impressed with how athletic he is. Just his capability of moving his limbs and stopping pucks has been very good historically. So yeah, that's perfectly fine to me. I like Amir Miftakov. And he's been playing well in the AHL, it seems. Hugo Alnefelt, I'm not as high on. I felt that at the World Junior last year, I just didn't really think that he gave me a lot of confidence in net. And then they put Jesper Wallstedt in, and I felt a lot better. So I hope that answers your question. But Miftakov is an interesting one to keep an eye on for sure, especially with such a hot start in the AHL. Hello, Nate. Has your opinion changed on Sasha Pastujov? No. Again, similar to Joshua and similar to Riley Kidney, I don't have concerns about Sasha Pastujov scoring points in junior. I do not have concerns about that whatsoever. He's tearing it up. Guelph is also really good. But yeah, I don't know. My opinions on him have not changed. I've seen him play this year with Guelph a couple of times. Still not the same. Still not the same. Or still the same, I should say. The opposite of what I just said. Still the same. That's my outlook on him. Scoring in junior should probably be no problem. Maybe in the right situation in the NHL, he can score points. Power play guy. Good pick where he went. It was a good value pick where he went. I'm not super thrilled about the upside. Or the likelihood that he hits his upside in the NHL. What do you think about Jacob Perreault changing his citizenship to the States and making the United States junior roster? Did not know he had done that. That's a very fascinating change, and it's probably a good thing for him. I get the feeling that he's not necessarily super high on Hockey Canada's priority list, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I think he could make the States team. He probably should. He fits in with that sort of high skill, high pace, just FU energy that the States usually comes with. And they should have a pretty darn good team this year, so I'm curious. He should be an interesting part of that team, and I imagine he'll make it, but time will tell. David DeGerdner. Hello. Do you think parents in Quebec will one day learn how to spell Maverick? No. No, it happens in English, too. Like, parents just spell words differently and just name their children that, right? Like, we're going to see children named Haystack with 3 Ks on the end in 10 years, I think. Austin Brass, Ryan Green, yeah, hell yeah. Made a note of him watching Kent Anderson. What are your thoughts? Yeah, Ryan Green. Look, I like Ryan Green. I think there's an interesting, I like the package of size and skill. He's very quick to think and move his hands in conjunction with one another. Like, he's very well connected in that area. But again, but that's kind of where it starts and ends. Like, he was a very good transitional player. He found space in the defensive zone, called for pucks, and got him. Made a skill move, no problem, found space, got through that. Beyond that, I didn't see a ton. I didn't see much going on. He got caved in defensively. He was not generating much offensively on the ice. He tried, but it wasn't a ton. But the skill is interesting. The problem is that he's almost a 2021 eligible player, and I haven't really... It's like, maybe there could be something there. Like, you want him to be moving his feet more defensively. You want him to be, a little bit more confident and assertive with the puck in the offensive zone. I don't know, like, he was playing with Jackson Hallam, who has been very good this year from what I've seen, and I can't remember his other line mate. And I just felt that he should have more points than he does. And I feel like a reason that is because he's just, like, if he doesn't have the puck, he's not super engaged. And even if he does have the puck, it's very much in a transport role rather than a creation role, or both. it's a little strange, but I do like him. He's on my list and ranked. He should get drafted, I think. Like, if you give him a few years in college, there could be an interesting sort of dynamic, maybe offensive leaning center, maybe. But I'm not holding my breath, especially considering how old he is. I feel like other guys might just supersede him a little. Who's the enigma of this draft that you've tracked? Tons of upside, but issues with work ethic and effort. It's kind of early to sort of pinpoint that right now, I think. But there are a few. I mean, David Yuricek is going to be fascinating. The data I've tracked in both games I've done is bad. It's just bad. There's really no way to slice it. Like, it's not, but he's not a bad player. Like, he's a very poor offensive transition player. I think in the game I tracked, he took 3 skill moves to look up the ice for a pass option and just rifled it 30 feet in the air over everybody and just iced the puck. He did that at least 3 times. And that might be an easy thing to fix, right? Like, you just sort of sit him down, go through the tape, and just go, look, you got to, look for an easier option and just execute on it, because just handing over possession like this or taking an icing doesn't help anyone. And it's a thing that happened in both games I've tracked. But, he shoots the puck a lot, and in situations that I haven't really been super thrilled about. He gets his defensive rush transition ability is hit or miss, I would say. But the combination of traits that he has is really intriguing. Like, he's big, he's nasty along the boards at times. He can be, sometimes he isn't, but sometimes he is. And you have to bet on what he is when he's at his best, I think. And in front of the net, he's usually pretty reliable and boxing it out and covering men and not really giving too much up defensively. It's just, and he's got hands and he's willing to use them, but it's just finding that balance of, like, simplifying his game, but also being assertive and confident, right? Like, there's that balance, and I don't think he's quite there at the pro level yet. I don't know. I'm still going to, I'll probably do a video on him because the data is fascinating relative to what I'm seeing and what could be there. Like, if you want to be optimistic, I could see him being a really good defensive player that can play on a power play even and just monitor the blue line, play with some skill, put pucks on net, and his defensive game is just big, mean, and nasty kind of guy. I maybe. But it's very strange. I don't know. It's very strange. But I wouldn't say that he has issues with work ethic or effort. And I don't usually like to, especially as a nearly overweight 31-year-old man, I don't really like to accuse teenagers of having a bad work ethic, especially without having knowledge of that being the case. But there are players where sometimes I just wish there was more in the tank that you're not seeing, especially when they don't have the puck. I'm looking like maybe a Danny Jilkin is kind of up that alley. Maybe, but that's a stretch. Like Rutger McGroarty. I think Rutger McGroarty is a player where even the upside maybe isn't there. But I with him, I've been looking for more than what I've been led to believe about him. I feel like I've been looking for more all year. And I have to do another game of his recently, but I don't know. I haven't been super impressed. Oh boy, I forgot to ask you about Vyacheslav Peksa. Andrei Vasilevsky, dare I ask? Yeah, I have no comment about Vyacheslav Peksa. What do you think of the Montreal Canadiens drafting and development system? Well, I did not like their draft this year at all, for obvious reasons. Their development system seems to be lackluster. Like, not a lot of guys really come through that system and really make an impact. A lot of guys come through that system and are okay NHL players at best. So, like, I feel like they usually draft pretty well, but in recent years they've kind of changed gears to be like, we need to be a playoff team kind of thing. And I just don't think it's working. I don't know. I don't think it's working. And also, drafting a sex criminal doesn't do many favors. He needs to be called Braden Lambert to be good. Well, all right, we can do that. On a personal note, do you like what the Coyotes are doing? It seems like the stink of being the worst team ever has less stink now than in previous years. That's a very interesting question, Michael. You're full of them tonight. Honestly, I don't friggin' know what the Coyotes are doing. What the Coyotes are doing, it all hinges on how they use their draft picks. And I have felt that their draft last year was okay. Not great. They got Dylan Gunther, which is fantastic. Josh Doan scoring a lot of points, for sure, in the NCAA, but I've never been super high on him, especially that high in the draft. I mean, they could have a Logan Stank. Oh, ow, my tooth. That hurt. Luckily, I'm going to the dentist tomorrow morning. Crap, I'm going to the dentist tomorrow morning. Yeah, I mean, look, it's gonna what matters is how they use these draft picks. I mean, I feel bad for Clayton Keller. He's 23 years old, locked in, and the team is gonna suck for a while. And literally, holy crap, literally all of their forwards except Andrew Ladd and Clayton Keller expire after this season, and most of them are UFAs. That is astounding. They are gonna be BAD bad. Oh, I guess Nick Schmaltz. Okay, he's fine, I guess. Holy smokes. But it does touch on something that I've been thinking about quite a bit, especially since Jack Eichel was traded, and he did his interview with Elliot Friedman. I think I get it when people were upset, like hockey people were upset about people and fans wanting their teams to lose. And when teams went out of their way to be bad. I think it's extremely risky territory to be an organization that relies on a competitive spirit and like winning at a thing and stepping up and being like, we're not gonna be good and we're gonna like try to be worse and gonna keep trying to be worse and we're gonna just draft guys and then be better. Like, that, now that I'm kind of older and thought about it more and like seen it from like the outside and seen what happened to places like Buffalo, I kind of get it. I kind of get why people were upset or annoyed at that strategy and why it might not have worked in some places. Like Toronto kind of went out of their way to be bad, but the guys that they acquired were like decent analytical players. Like they played good hockey. Guys like Mark Arcobello and Brad Boyes and I'm trying to think about that, like Mason Raymond. All of those guys just kind of played well, but they weren't good players. But they were guys that when you put them on the ice, like if you have young players on the ice with them, you know that you're going to see them trying to win and trying to move the needle, and maybe once in a while they can. Whereas in other places, you just see them just tank and bring up just like basically AHL guys and just say, just play. Like if we lose, who cares? Like whatever. I don't know. It's very dangerous ground, and it's very difficult, I think, to repair that if you end up with a culture where you have to dig yourself out of a losing mentality. You know, and I think like you listen to Jack Eichel talk about it, and he's like, yeah, like, I mean, basically what he was saying is, I'm Jack effing Eichel, and the team around me the organization seemed to want to not do well with me on the team. And so, yeah, like that would piss me off if I'm a player. So I get what the Coyotes are doing. And I know that there's rumors that they might not, like they could burn the whole thing to the ground if they wanted to and just sell off at the deadline, and they might. And you know what? Having a lot of draft picks in this year's draft could pay off really well. I really like this year's draft class so far. You just got to use it right. And if they don't, that could be a problem. And I feel like in the draft, generally, you can't be certain, but you can tell what teams left a lot of value on the board from the get-go in a lot of cases. You can just say objectively, like, maybe Tyler Boucher is going to be a great player for the Ottawa Senators. Sure, maybe. But already, like, within months, you're seeing evidence that it's an uphill battle already. It just is. So I don't know. It's a dangerous territory, I think, that they're walking on. I get what they're doing. I would like a little bit more stability with like who's gonna be part of this team. Who are the guys? Who can, like, if I look at the Arizona Coyotes roster, the only guy that I can see on that roster where I'm looking at them and going, you're the guy I want to look up to if I'm a new player on that team, it's Clayton Keller. And even then, like, I love Clayton Keller, like, hand to God. I've loved him as a player since he was draft eligible. But he still hasn't hit that point where I'm going, he's a leader of the team. He's part of this team forever because we won't let him go. Like, I don't think he's at that point. And they don't have anything. So they got to find it. I don't know. Someone's got to play for that team next year. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's I think they're in dangerous territory, personally. It's really rough right now. And they don't really seem to have this sort of establishing like what they are going to be, right? Like I don't really see it. They just have a lot of draft picks. They're bad and they have a lot of draft picks. I've heard that story before and it's dangerous territory. I know you don't check up too much on players from last year's draft, but have you seen Carson Lambos this year? Hell yeah, I have, and he looks real good. He's looked pretty good this year, and I thought he would. Again, I've said this a few times. Last year when I was looking through my video before the draft, he's the guy that jumped up my list the most when reviewing it. I don't know. I think people swung way too far on the wrong end, putting him outside the first round and such. I was one of those people for a while, but after a while, it's like, yeah, you know what? He deserves some respect. Connor Geeky's point potential in the NHL. Oh, God. This is going to haunt me. I don't know. I don't think it's super high. I mean, I think he's a good transitional forward. He's got nice playmaking potential under pressure for a big guy. I don't know. I could see him being a 50 or 60 point guy. You know, a decent second line center, good third line center, something in that range maybe. But he's still, I think there's a ways to go for him to get there. I would need him to be chipping in more defensively than he already is. I would need him to be, you know, more reliable and just consistent on a shift-by-shift basis. Quicker on his feet, but he's big, so that might be too much to ask, I guess, which is not a bad thing, but something to note. I don't know. But I think reasonably, like a good second line center or a really good third in the NHL, whatever that means to you. Could Brad Lambert be like a Lundell or Barzal? Well, at this point, maybe. I don't know. I hope not. I feel like he deserves to be drafted pretty high, but we'll see. Thoughts on Dylan Gunther, because it seems like prior to the draft, people had concerns about his play driving ability. It would seem like this year at the least he's improved. At the very least, he's improved in that department. Yeah, I saw a couple of Oil Kings games this year. I don't know about concerns about play driving. My concerns with Gunther were he was very much a perimeter shooter last year. Just like shooting from everywhere and just kind of trying things. I didn't really like the consistency in his skating ability. He just didn't seem to be, I guess that's play driving. Like he just felt pretty inconsistent moving the puck around the ice and maintaining control and all that. So yeah, I guess there were concerns about play driving. But yeah, I mean, it seems like he has improved. The puck control's a little bit better. But I haven't seen enough Edmonton Oil Kings to like give you a detailed breakdown. But I have seen him look like a better, or at least more reliable player than last year, from what I saw. Super fun that Wright has been super fun that Wright has at the very least been producing. However, I don't see him having that next level offensive ability. More like a two-way cup-winning first or second line center that can score you goals. Okay, so what you just said, a two-way cup-winning first or second line center that can score you goals, that sounds like a hell of a hockey player. I don't know. I see what you mean, though. He's not, like, Shane Wright's not Connor McDavid, right? Like, that's not what he is. He's more of a, you know, like almost like a smaller Joe Thornton. Like, just really smart and you know, maybe, I mean, he's a better shooter than Joe Thornton ever was. so maybe that's a terrible example. But like Ryan Getzlaf comes to mind. Like you watch Ryan Getzlaf and he's not like exploding up the ice all night from what I remember in his prime, but it was more just like intelligent, awareness-based, skill, wicked shot, size and strength. Maybe there's a bit of that to Shane Wright that he can uncover. I am a bit skeptical about Wright, but I still haven't done a second game on him. But I still have him at number 1, and I feel like he's gonna stay there. But I don't know. Like he's not Connor McDavid, I don't think. But he's not a bad player. He's in fact a very talented one. Thoughts on Emile Andrei? Doing well in Sweden. Yeah. I don't. Emile Andrei is interesting. I feel like the problem with him, like seeing Andrei producing in the Allsvenskan, like that should be the expectation. Clearly he's improved, and I feel like at the World Junior he'll be a predominant defenseman for that team. But the thing with him for me is always like projecting. Like I'm not really interested that much in how well he'll play in the Allsvenskan in a couple of years. My only concern is, can this player play in the NHL? And I mean, I saw him quite a bit in his draft year, and I just never was really taken away with him. And the data on him was not always great. I just feel like his style of play in the NHL, it's tough to pull it off. But time will tell, especially on the offensive side. Maybe defensively, he can be a mobile, physical guy, that Victor Mete type maybe. Just a nice defense-first guy that scored everywhere before coming to the pros and just kind of evaporated. But, I mean, he's had a good year. That can't be denied. And at the same time, though, HV71 is a team that should be in the SHL, and they are way better than most teams in the Allsvenskan. It would be pretty surprising if they didn't get promoted back into the elite in the Swedish Hockey League next year. Should the Rangers send Lafreniere down to the AHL and give him 2 or 3 years to dominate so he can gain more confidence and then come back to the NHL? I wouldn't send him down for 2 or 3 years. I don't think I'd send him down at all. I don't think, like, at this point, you can't. I don't think you can. Like, imagine that conversation. Like, the first overall draft pick from not even 2 years ago, you're sitting him down and saying, hey, we're going to send you down to the minors. Like, they've been talking about getting him in more favorable positions and getting him going and doing all these things, and he's a very, very significant asset for them. I don't know. I mean, maybe you send him down for a couple of months and just to get his feet moving and whatever. But I don't know. That's a tough call. That's a tough call. I certainly wouldn't give him 2 or 3 years, let alone finishing the entire season this year in the NHL. The only reason I do that is if the Rangers are like dead last in the league and he's terrible, not doing well in like January, then maybe, but I don't know. Sending him down to the AHL for a little bit, maybe I could see it make sense, but that's a tough call. That's a tough call, a tough conversation, and I wouldn't want to have it. Sorry if you've answered this already, but is Shane Wright the only player in this draft that you'd project as a 1C at the NHL level? No, I think Matthew Savoy can get there. I think Brad Lambert could get there. Logan Cooley might be a tough sell for me. I mean, at his best of the best possible outcome, guys like Östlund and Geeky could be up there. But that's about it. I would say that Savoy and Lambert, I'd say, are the threats that could be up there at the end of the day. Thoughts on Danny Jilkin? I came away pretty surprised. Tremendous playmaking numbers in the game I tracked. Didn't get rewarded for it a whole lot. Daniel Jilkin. Really, really good game, though. Like, really good. So he tried 37 dangerous passes per 60 minutes. So that's more than one every 2 minutes he was on the ice, which is pretty nuts. I think he hit 9. But he missed 80% of them. So he was just kind of shoving it out in front of the net and hoping someone was there, and most of the time they were not. Not a great night in terms of hitting on his passes, and a lot of that is these dangerous ones. Because a lot of his 39% of his pass attempts were dangerous, which kind of implies that he's a pretty inactive player moving the puck around the ice outside that. But he is a pretty tremendous puck carrier. like a lot of controlled offensive entries and exits. 40% involvement in those offensive transitions is really good. And, you know, of all of his offensive transitions, both controlled and non-controlled, 36% of them being controlled offensive ones with carrying the puck, that's pretty high. And I would need to check where he ranks on that. I feel like this is also kind of outperforming his real talent level. I feel like over the year, this will sort of cool down a little. But like he was playing with Sasha Pastujov, so anyone who's like, well, Sasha Pastujov is scoring a ton of points. A guy like this on your line, it doesn't hurt. A guy who's wired this way to just put pucks in play in the offensive zone and move pucks up the ice with control, that's a pretty good pair for Sasha Pastujov, and that maybe could be the future of his game in the NHL, but we'll see. I need more water. Starting to lose my voice here, folks. Okay. Do you think McTavish, Jarvis, or Sillinger will be returned to junior soon? I don't think Sillinger's going back to junior. I mean, Anaheim sent McTavish to the minors, right? I think they sent him to San Diego. I feel like if Anaheim were going to send him back to junior, they would have instead of sending him to San Diego. So I get the feeling he's here to stay, even if it is in the AHL all year. Seth Jarvis, I get the feeling he's stuck in the NHL. I mean, I watched a bit of Carolina, and I feel like he seems to be doing just fine. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to rush him to the NHL, but I don't think he goes back to junior. I mean, he was great at the AHL level last year. I feel like, if anything, he'll be sent to the AHL. Do you think Savoy, Bedard, or any other undrafted players will make Canada's World Junior team? Bedard will be an interesting one. I think he's good enough to play on that team. I think he should. Savoy, I think he should as well. Shane Wright should be on the team. But any other player than that, like undrafted ones, I don't think so. Like Mikey Milne might be too optimistic. But yeah, Canada's World Junior team. Yeah, I think that would be it. Shane Wright for sure, I think makes it. Matthew Savoy, I think will get a real good look. I think Connor Bedard should make it. I think he's that good. But we'll see. Oh, finally, I got a response. I won't lie to you. I'm just recommending players I've played with. So that's Stofferson, who suggested all these guys in California. Okay, well, good to know. So just guys you've played with. Send my regards. Who's the most one-dimensional player you have going in the first round? That's a tough one, because usually I don't put one-dimensional players in the first round. Jonathan Lekaramaki so far, I guess, would be that. Like, he's a great shooter with great skill, but I haven't seen much else out of him. I want to see more, because the game I tracked was not good for him, but he's probably the closest thing to what you're looking for. Maybe Lane Hudson, just like skilled defenseman. Just skill to like the moon, and then not much else. So those two guys kind of come to mind. Yeah. How much money would it take for you to drink IPAs? How much money would you give me to drink IPAs? Because we can negotiate. Let's negotiate. Who wins the under-18 tournament this year? The States. Let's say the States. It's a great team this year. Brent Ninendorf. The Nineman. Thoughts on Simon Edvinsson and Shai Buyam? Detroit could have a scary defense core soon. May have defensemen to package for a top flight center in the future with no lottery luck in the next couple of years. That's true. I don't think you need to think about lottery luck. I think the Detroit Red Wings should be thinking about making that kind of a move relatively soon, not just in the future. Let's see. Shai Buyam. I have seen Simon Edvinsson. It looks like he just seems to be improving overall. Like, his puck management is the only real thing that I raised as a major red flag last year, but he seems to be playing more simplified with the passing, and as well, you know, just straight up more comfortable. which is a big step in the right direction. Shai Buyam, I thought it was a reach at 36. I mean, he's got some skill, but I did think it was a reach. Like, all of his points came against Air Force, where his team won by a combined score of 12-1 in 2 games. So, I don't know. Shai Buyam, I'm a little bit more cool on. I watched him a lot last year and just kind of thought when he was drafted, like, really? Like, Detroit's U.S. scouting has always been a bit confusing to me. Like, who they pick as their guy has always been a little bit strange to me. But, I mean, Buyam is fine. He's fine. Thoughts on Lundell? He's an extremely talented player, and he's showing us why. Thoughts on Timothy Liljegren? It's fascinating watching how his game has changed over the years, that's for sure. I remember when he was a shoot first, ask questions later, mobile offensive defenseman playing in the SHL, which was a while ago, but I still, where was I here? Oh yeah, but I still had faith. I've said it multiple times on stream, like Leaf fans and people who love to hate the Leafs were making fun of them and Timothy Liljegren for not being in the NHL yet. Like, I saw Steve Dangle saying, oh, this year's like his put up or shut up year. It's like, dude, people only say that because he's only played for the Marlies. He's been right under the Leafs' noses for, 4 years now? Like, this is his 5th season since being drafted. Like, that's not that long, especially for a defenseman. Like, it's amazing to me how Leaf fans will say, oh, we have to be patient. We have to do this. We have to do this. We did this wrong before. And then they fall right into the exact same traps when it's like just a smidge longer than they want it to be to wait for a player. I look at Timothy Liljegren and see a strong, mobile, safe defensive player that can shoot. He's willing to shoot. You give him the puck in the offensive zone and he puts a quick shot on net. Sometimes you need a guy who can do that. And he does that. And, I felt that he's had a few nice chances this year in the NHL. Solid defense first guy. Not perfect, but he's a rookie. But I've liked what I've seen of him. And it just goes to show, like, patience. Bring guys along slowly. Don't put them in a situation that's too much for them. Just one step at a time. And Liljegren was always one of the better youth scoring defensemen in the AHL over the last couple of years, and no one really paid attention that much. Does the offense translate? I'm not so sure. I'm not positive about that at all. But he's a capable defender and a capable player already, and I think there's room to grow once he gets more confident. Leaving Devil's Isles, Dawson Mercer's going to be fantastic. Yeah, you wouldn't be wrong on that. He's a very good player. He continues to impress in New Jersey. Are there any Mercer-like players that you're seeing amongst 2022? Liam Ugren is kind of up that alley, maybe. Like, nice, well-rounded offensive game with some nice wheels under him, but a bit of inconsistency. Who else? Ludwig Persson could be another one. Maybe a bit more of a playmaker than a finisher like Dawson Mercer is. Isaac Howard, maybe, is kind of like that as well, here and there. Something like that. Oh goodness, we have Raybro over in Twitch now. He's just bouncing around. Brandon Lazowski thoughts. He's pretty shifty. Yeah, that's about all he is to me. He was good in the game I tracked, but he's just got some skill, and I didn't see a ton else. He's on my ranking list, but I'm not jumping to pick him early in the draft. But I will do more games of him, so don't worry. Maybe I'm wrong. Hello, Will. Hello, Michael. Another Michael. Happy to be back. Welcome back. What puts Nazar over Howard for you? Honestly, these days, I'm not sure. I don't know. Just kind of how it happened. But in seriousness, I mean, that is true. I'm not lying. But in seriousness, I like Nazar's motor. I like his ability to carve into space on his edges, his ability to turn and get into space and use skill to attack the middle of the net. Under pressure especially, I like. He's got a really interesting... his shot's pretty good. He can make a play. I like Frank Nazar quite a bit. Isaac Howard just was... He's flashy, and he's got pace and speed, and I really like him. And I think at the end of the year, yeah, Isaac Howard could be above Frank Nazar for me. I've looked at Frank Nazar going, all right, I've seen some people's really loving him. Not sure I'm on that boat. Isaac Howard, I've seen him do some pretty impressive stuff with his hands and at a high speed. And I feel like if he's available at like 20 or 25, like I've seen some rankings have him, easy pick. Easy pick. I take him. No questions asked. But yeah, I don't know. I do want to see more of him for sure. I think I have another game of his queued up, so next week I'll see more and maybe he'll be above Frank Nazar that week. Who knows? Can you add my buddy Jeff into can you add my buddy Jeff in my beer league to your watch list? Sure. Michael, Barry's friend, Jeff. Beer. There. How about that? There you go. He's in there. Congratulations. Amazing. Okay. Are there any interesting goalies in this draft, or are we spoiled in the last few classes of top-end goalies? Tyler Brennan's the only one I have ranked. Sergei Ivanov, maybe. Maybe. But, yeah. But Tyler Brennan's the only one that's really stuck out to me. Did you notice Quentin Musty while tracking Goyet? Yeah, Quentin Musty's really pretty good. I like him a lot, but we'll see more next year. I was paying more attention to Goyet, unfortunately. So have the Sabres actually been having a really successful rebuild? I mean, Power, Krebs, Quinn, JJ Peterka, Devin Levi, that's nice prospects. Yes, sure. But the flip side is, in order to get Krebs, you had to trade Jack Eichel. In order to get Devin Levi, you had to trade Sam Reinhart. Jack Quinn's having a great start to his AHL season, but I still think that Marco Rossi is the guy. I just cannot. I mean, obviously now that Marco Rossi has had COVID and struggled with it and thought he was gonna die, that might have affected things just a little. But I still have a lot of faith in the guy. I love Marco Rossi just so much as a player that I will hold fast. And that was a pretty easy call at the time, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. I think Owen Power is still not the best player available from last year's draft. That's a good group of players you have listed. That is a good group of hockey players. I love JJ Peterka in the second round. It is so clear he should have gone in the first round at this point, but he didn't. But the group of players you have there, swap it out for even, let's just say, a teammate of Owen Power. If he went first overall, Luke Hughes. Let's say you have Luke Hughes, Jack Eichel, Marco Rossi, JJ Peterka, because yeah, that's a great pick, and Sam Reinhart. Like in 1 year, I feel like that's a bunch of very good players. I don't know. Their rebuild is going well. I thought they did well in the Jack Eichel trade. I thought they did well in the Sam Reinhart trade-ish. JJ Peterka is a great pick. It's going fine. It's going fine. Everybody loves to dunk on the Sabres, for sure. But it's fine. Right? That's my view. They've been doing just fine. But it would be really nice to still have Jack Eichel and have Jack Eichel want to play for your team. Jasmeet, hello. Have you caught any Yanni Newman this year? Oh, yes, I have. He's quite talented. Big, rangy, skilled guy. I like him a lot. I need to see more, but I like him a lot. Tape has been really slow out of Finland this year, but now that he's in the Liga a little bit, I'm a fan of what I'm seeing. Skating needs a bit of work, but I like what I see out of him. Do you have any thoughts on Julian Lutz? I liked him before the season, but he's been hurt, so I haven't seen him at all. So let's circle back when he's healthy and playing games this year. What does Paul Ludwinski need to do to move up the list? Play more games in front of my own eyeballs and keep doing what he's doing. Super mobile and skilled and rambunctious and aggressive offensively. I feel like the puck skill is kind of lacking. He's a really good puck transporter. Doing something with it is a little bit of a work in progress, but I like Paul Ludwinski, even if it's just as like a third line rangy center. I'm happy with that. I think that that's a great thing to have. I think he's an easy call for like a low ceiling NHL player. And that's probably worth picking in the late first round. Even though the Sioux Greyhounds are pretty strong, Bryce McConnell Barker seems impressive. What are your thoughts on him? He's interesting. Like, I like his ability to sort of move around the ice. He's got nice edges and can turn well and cover ice pretty well. The skill is pretty good as well, which I like. I don't like his offensive abilities, though. He seems pretty limited in terms of shooting the puck, and he's kind of a volume shooter, and when he does shoot, I don't really like his shot that much. I haven't tracked him yet, and he is on the list to track, so I will get to him at some point. So I'll have more to report back later, but right now he's like in my early third, late second round range. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like how he plays in a sense, but I'm not sure how he projects. I guess if that makes sense. Thoughts on Ken Johnson? Has he shown improvement over the last season in your eyes? A little bit. Not I haven't seen enough Michigan to really give you. I can't watch every game of everybody all the time, unfortunately, folks. But I have seen a little bit of Michigan. I don't know. I feel like he's relatively similar, but the skill is kind of, he's leaning into it more and trying to be a little bit more assertive and more confident and just better. So, like, I don't mind that. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen much of Michigan, though, this year, so I can't say too much. What do you think of Richie for next year? Richie who? Richie for next year. You're gonna need to clarify who Richie is. I am blowing a blank here. My brain is in post live stream mode because my brain is starting to get tired and my throat hurts. NCAA or CHL? I don't know. NCAA because you get to go to school and get a fancy degree at the end of it. Whereas in the CHL, you just go to bad Canadian towns and just play weird hockey. I don't know. I'm just NCAA. I don't know. I like the NCAA environment and the fact that you get to go to school is a plus. At least, especially if it's a good program and a good conference. Sure. What do you think of Dmitry Reshevsky? I mean, I'm glad he got drafted. I never really saw it before this year, but definitely seeing more skill than I remember seeing last year. He's got a wicked shot, clearly. That was never in doubt. Oh, Callum Ritchie. Yeah, he's very good. That's the Ritchie you were thinking of. Yeah, real good player. I watched Oshawa the other day. He's a wagon. He's good. He's a good one for next year, and I like the guy in London. Wow, I can't remember. Park? Oh. Damn, I can't remember his name. Barkey? Caden Barkey or something? Anyway, he's pretty fun. But yeah, Callum Ritchie has been very, very good for Oshawa from what I've seen. But with Reshevsky, yeah, he's a great shooter. I think he's outshooting his actual talent level in the KHL this year quite a bit. Like a lot of his goal scoring is on the power play. A lot of his goals are kind of iffy, projectable ones for the NHL. I just don't know. I mean, he's a good pick. He's a good player. I don't know. He's scoring a lot, and I don't know if I buy it quite on that level. What's the deal with Östlund? Well, his skating isn't great for what you would expect. He's skilled and smart. I think he's a real smart player, and that helps him a lot. Smart positional support player, smart finding open ice defensively and offensively. Nice one-touch passer as well, but just it's not quite enough right now. It's really good, but I'm not sure it's quite enough. But I have a lot of faith in him. Michael Malloy, just want to say thank you for continuing to do these weekly. You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. Yeah, glad to have you around. Glad to have all of you around. It's a good time. I still enjoy it. Four seasons in, still really enjoying it. A lot of work behind the scenes, but it's a lot of fun. Doesn't feel like work, which I guess is the point. So thank you. Last question of the night, and then we're going to call it. Where would you take Martin Chromiak in a 2020 redraft? I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of Martin Chromiak. He can shoot. Let's see. Let's take a quick look. Oh right, he scored a lacrosse goal. That's fun. Yeah, I mean, like a D+2 scoring a 1.5 per game when he's playing with Shane Wright all night. I don't know. I've never been over the moon with Martin Chromiak, but maybe I'm wrong. Just seems like a volume shooter who shoots with tremendous shooting talent rather than a ton else. All right, that is going to be it. I think I'm going to call it an evening. Thank you very much for joining me. This was a lot of fun. I will see you all next week. Same time, same place, same everything. I don't know what else to tell you. Thank you very much for joining me. Had a lot of fun. See you next week. I just said the exact same thing twice, but that's okay. But yeah, stay safe. If you haven't, get those vaccines. Load up. Jam them in you. Get her done. Hope you're well.